So this is Mobvoi's TicWatch Pro 5, and I've been using it for the last month or so now, and I wanted to give you guys my thoughts, my review on the watch. Is it worth getting this watch in late 2023 as well as going into 2024? This watch is about 6 months old now. It released back in May, but Mobvoi reached out to me and they were kind enough to send out the watch for me to check out. But these are all my own thoughts, my own opinions, so Mobvoi is watching the video at the same time that you guys are. They just simply provided the watch for me to check out. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So first, the unboxing. Inside the box, you basically just get your watch with the bands already attached to the watch, and you only get one band, and the band is a medium large type of size. There's no like smaller size, so it is a one size watch. And then you also get your charger in the box, which is a USB-A to the connector pin watch charger. Then you also get your quick start guide. So it's a pretty simple unboxing experience. So you don't get much other stuff in the box, which is pretty similar to what other manufacturers do as well, whether it be Samsung or Apple or even Google now with the Pixel Watch. As far as the price, it starts at $350 USD, but I've easily seen the watch on sale for as low as like $265-ish. So you can probably easily find it for well under $300, which is pretty competitively priced compared to other manufacturers. The Pixel Watch starts at $350, but you can probably get it for around $300. The Samsung watches, they think it starts around $300 as well, but sometimes you can find it for under that price. So it's pretty competitively priced in my opinion. Now getting into the watch, it is a one size fits all. Not only did I mention the bands is a one size fits all, but the body itself, it's only one size. There's no other smaller size. This is on the bigger size in my opinion. I believe the screen size measures about 1.43 inches. So roughly around maybe a 45 or 46 millimeter size watch. So it is on the bigger side. It reminds me a lot of the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic or maybe the 6 Classic now or the Watch 5 Pro. So it's around that size of a watch. So if you have smaller wrists, this might not be the watch to look for. The body itself is made up of aluminum. You do have a matte look to it, except for the buttons themselves, and also the metal ring that's over top of the watch does have a glossy finish. And that metal ring, it looks like a rotating bezel, but it's not. It's just a ring over top of the body itself, and it does help raise the watch itself so that the display isn't completely flush and flat. So if you bump into something flat or something, the chances are of you bumping into that glass or cracking the corners or the edges of the glass is pretty much completely blocked because of that little metal ring that they have over top, which is pretty nice. I do wish though that it was a rotating bezel, but at least you do have the rotating crown, which is on the right hand side of the watch, which helps you navigate actual software of the device. Above the crown, you also have another button, which is like a recents button. So in the software, it's used to be able to go to your recents app. On the back, you have your sensors, which includes temperature sensors, heart rate sensors, all the good stuff that you get on most common health watches nowadays. They're all pretty much included on the TicWatch Pro 5 as well. You'll also see your charging port on the back. You'll notice that it's not a full glass like most other devices are, which means the whole charger is a magnet that allows you to connect it just on the watch. This uses a pin connector, which is also magnetic, and it functions pretty much fine. The only thing I guess you could say is that it's on one side, so you can't really connect it on either side, but you'll remember where it connects because the crown side is where that pin connector is. So it's not that big of a deal, and it's pretty easy to just keep it on there and not have to worry about it. And then the silicone band that comes included, personally, it does feel a bit flimsy and cheap. It's not the most high-end silicone band you can get, but I think it gets the job done. It's probably one of those like $15, $10 bands you can get from Amazon. And if you want to switch it out, you most definitely can. It does use a 24 millimeter band size, so you do have to get that particular size, which can be either a good thing or a bad thing depending on where you look at it. For me personally, my Samsung watches use a 20 millimeter, so those aren't compatible with this particular watch. So if you are coming from those size bands, then unfortunately those won't fit on here, or vice versa. As far as comfort and feel on the hand, it's overall pretty comfortable. It is, again, a big watch, so if you have smaller wrists, and it's going to look a little too oversized on your wrist. But the band itself, not the most comfortable, like I already said. I find that I sometimes struggle to decide which size or which hole I want to stick the watch into to make it either a little bit too tight or a little bit too loose, and I just find myself going back and forth between the different holes. So I might benefit from upgrading and changing the watch band, but that's just my personal wrist. And the watch also has US military 810 hardness durability, which if I'm not mistaken means it's been tested through like extreme temperatures, both hot and cold, and all kinds of different environments. And the watch is also rated for 5 atmospheres of water resistance. So if you get caught in the rain with it, or if you even shower with it, and I think you can use it for swimming activities as well, you'll be just fine with this watch. As far as the display, it is a dual layer display technology, which is pretty cool in my opinion. It basically has like a digital watch, which just provides you the essentials of what a watch should provide you with. Then you have your traditional smartwatch display, your OLED display. It is a 1.4-inch size display, and as far as the OLED display, it's a resolution of 466 by 466, and also is capable of being used with an always-on display. Powering the device, you do have the Snapdragon W5 Plus, as well as 2 GB of RAM and 32 GB of onboard storage, and the software is using Google Wear OS 3.5. So overall, the experience has been pretty solid. Performance-wise, it feels snappy most of the time, about 95% of the time, but then there's that 5% where sometimes it feels a bit laggy, or there's a delay or a glitch, and usually that only happens when the watch is switching between the two different modes. So typically, once you switch from the essential mode back to the smart mode, there's a bit of a delay. And the software experience is somewhat new to me, so I'm still getting used to it, still learning about it. Wear OS is new to me. I'm not used to a stock Wear OS smartwatch, and this works and performs and functions pretty much the same as the Google Pixel Watch that I've actually been using for the last couple of days as well, since I got the Pixel 8 Pro. So I've been kind of comparing it next to it, but I'm not going to do a comparison right now. We can do a different video if you want to check that out, if you want me to make a video, and also maybe comparing it to the Samsung watches. But that's what I'm used to. I'm used to my Samsung watches, and the OS experience is just a little bit different. Some things are the same, but there's a couple ways that you interact with it, the buttons, how they're set up, they're just a little bit different. So in case you've never used a Wear OS watch before, currently with Wear OS 3.5, the way you navigate is pretty basic. So you have your smartwatch, your watch face, your home base, I guess you could say, and then swiping either left or right will show you your tiles, which can be organized and set up how you want it to be. It can be stuff like your health stuff, your weather, Spotify, notes, maps, whatever you want to choose for your tiles. Whichever way you go, it's always swiping to those tiles. Swiping down brings down your quick settings, your quick toggles. So you can quick toggle different settings, whether it be Bluetooth, bedtime mode, the brightness, and stuff like that. You can easily, quickly navigate through that. One thing I do like is that when you're listening to media, so if it's YouTube or Spotify, if you're listening to music or something, when you swipe down, you're able to quickly see a quick media player, which allows you to just quickly pause and play as you need. But if you click onto it, it'll open up a media player which allows you to skip the song, pause it, change the volume, and so on and so forth, which is pretty nice. And then swiping up from the watch face brings up all your notifications. As far as the gestures, you can use one on the display, but you can also use your buttons to navigate as well. So on the display, if you're on a certain app or on a certain screen, and you just want to go back to the previous screen, just swipe from the left and it takes you back a screen. If you want to go to your Recents app, you have to click the top button. It opens up all your recently opened apps, and you can just select from that list. And if you hold down on the Recents app, it opens up your power menu option so you can turn off the watch or restart that watch from that menu. And double clicking the Recents app button opens up Google Pay. The rotating crown can be used not only to navigate, but if you press down on it, it'll always take you back to your watch face. And then once you get to your watch face, you can press on it again to go to a list of all your apps. And double clicking the crown allows you to quickly switch between your two most recently used apps. So that's basically it with the software. It's pretty basic. So again, if you've used a Wear OS watch before, this might feel similar to you. If you haven't before, like myself, then this will take a little bit of learning once you get used to the way that the buttons are set up and the way you control and navigate through the settings. It's pretty simple once you get used to it, but it's definitely a small bit of a learning curve. There's a couple of things with the software which I'm not a fan of, and that's number one being specific to the TicWatch Pro 5, which is that there's no Google Assistant. With the Pixel Watch, there is Google Assistant, but with this watch, there isn't any Google Assistant at this moment. They say that it may come in the future, but at the moment, it's not available. Another thing I don't like is that it doesn't synchronize with my bedtime mode. So if you have a bedtime mode set up on your phone, it doesn't automatically transition and turn on your watch as well. You have to manually go in and turn it on the watch. I also am not a huge fan of the pre-installed and available watch faces that they have from TicWatch themselves or from Mobvoi themselves. You can use a third-party app such as Timeshow, or I think there's an app called Facer that allows you to use a third-party watch face. But I like to stick with the stock ones to see what they're able to offer, because with those other third-party apps, you can easily get those watch faces on pretty much any other watch as well. So most of the watch faces on here available aren't the most customizable. And something I noticed as well is that some apps and also some settings use the military time. I know that might be a universal time way to tell time, but personally, I'm used to the 12-hour system where it's just AM, PM, and then you're 1 through 12. So there's some applications, and then even in the health settings app, sometimes it'll tell you time in the military time. Another thing too is that you're unable to change the orientation of the way the watch face works with the watch depending on where you have it on your hand as well as on which hand you have it on. So if you let the keeper crown facing towards you, you're going to want to have to keep it on your right hand side. If you let the crown towards your hand, towards your wrist, then you're going to want to have it on your left hand side. So that might be an annoying thing that may sway you one way or another. And I believe the reason it's like that is because I think the ultra low power display is hard coded into the watch itself. And receiving calls notifications has been no issue as well. I will say if you have a Google phone, usually it comes pre-installed with the Pixel Watch app. If you have that installed, you won't be receiving your notifications such as messages on the watch. So definitely uninstall that app because it was preventing me from actually receiving those notifications. The watch would vibrate, but once I looked at my watch and tried to scroll up to see my notifications, there'd be nothing there. And you can directly answer the phone calls on the watch itself. It does have a built-in microphone as well as built-in speakers. Now, as far as the health capabilities, I'm not going to go too in-depth just because I'm not an athlete. I'm not an athletic person. I don't really do much advanced as far as just seeing my heart rate numbers, making sure it tracks my goals and actually setting up those goals, and then just trying to keep myself active and just having a watch that tells me that I'm doing a good job. It's all that matters to me. So some things that may matter to you and are important, I won't be covering. So I definitely would recommend a more in-depth health video from someone else just because I'm definitely more of a simple, basic user and won't be using my watch for more intense tracking. And I've just been using the TicWatch apps that come pre-installed on the device. So Tic Health, Tic Pulse, Tic Exercise, Tic Sleep, all that stuff that comes pre-installed. That's what I've been using. I haven't been using any other third-party application. For me, what I look for is what kind of goals am I able to look at? What kind of goals am I able to achieve with the pre-installed applications? So the three main goals that the TicWatch uses is number one going to be your steps, which is good. That should be a standard for all goals for an everyday user is the steps. Make sure you reach that step goal. The next one is going to be your activity for each hour, so your activity tracker. So this allows you to set a goal of how many hours in a day you want to be active. So basically, just take at least 100 steps per hour. That counts towards an active hour. So I like that goal as well. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, and it also reminds you if you haven't achieved that goal yet, it'll send you a little reminder notification saying you have X amount of steps left to achieve your active hour. The next goal, which I also like, is the exercise goal. Pretty simple and pretty basic. How many minutes in a day or hours in a day do you want to achieve of exercise every day for you to be able to complete? And one thing with that is that this watch doesn't do an amazing job of tracking non-exercise as exercise. So for example, with my other watches, whether it be my Samsung watches or even my Apple watches and even now the Pixel watch, if you're just going about your day and you're not actually exercising, but you're just casually doing your day. So say you go to the mall or you're lifting stuff for your work and stuff like that. This watch won't count those like small intense periods where your heart rate is elevated as exercise versus the Pixel watch and other watches, those small 5, maybe 2 minutes of intense workout, exercise, light exercise, whatever, it counts that towards your goal of active moments and stuff like that. So this watch does not count that, which is a bit annoying because you have to make sure that if you are exercising, you have to turn on that exercise, especially if it's an exercise that's not like one of the auto-tracked ones. So it does auto-track, but only after X amount of time and after X amount of heart rate elevation. So if you don't meet those standards, then it's not going to count it, which I guess can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it, because you might think, well, it's not really exercise, so I don't want it to count towards it. Versus you may want to look at it as, well, I was kind of being a little bit strenuous here, so I kind of feel like it should count towards it. I'm on that edge of the scale, so I personally think if you're doing something and you're pushing your body to be a little bit more physical, I feel like it should count towards your exercise goal. I will say though, I have been questioning its credibility as far as its tracking capabilities because there's two things I've noticed. Number one being the step counter. I've noticed that sometimes the steps go up when I'm just sitting around or I'm biking. I'm biking on a stationary bike and it's going up in steps when I'm just being stationary. So I'm unsure why it's doing that or how it's tracking it. It could be that it thinks that because I'm moving up and down, my hand at least, that it counts it as steps or something. Because like right now, I was at a start of 13,700 something steps when I started making this video, and I'm at like 48 minutes of recording time, and I've gone up to 14,000 steps somehow. So I don't know how or why it's able to go up in steps when I'm just sitting here. Same thing with the heart rate. I remember there were times where, again, had both watches on and I was tracking on both watches. I don't know how it compares to it being on two different hands, but I would notice that typically the TicWatch Pro 5 would be at a higher elevated heart rate compared to the other watch. So again, I don't know how accurate that makes it or if it makes it inaccurate and not something to be relied on. But again, just wanted to note it that I did notice that. The Tic Exercise app does support well over, I think, 100 plus different types of sports and activities and workouts. So it has different options that you can use to track your workouts and exercise throughout the day. And if you're doing a certain type of exercise, you are able to get a recovery time calculated for you. So I've noticed it with my running. So after a run, it'll tell me my recovery time of how much I have to wait before I'm fully recovered so I can go again with the same type of exercise. You're also able to turn on high performance GPS mode if you wanted to for, say, a run. Basically, it allows the watch to track your GPS every second versus the default is every 3 seconds. So if you really care about tracking your exact route that you take, then you might want to turn that on. You are able to have the ultra low power display a certain color depending on your heart rate. So you can just take a quick glance at your watch and notice that, I haven't really been pushing myself enough because I'm still in either the blue or in the yellow. I want to be in the purple or something. So that helps you to just quickly get at a glance look at your heart rate. And also with those particular workouts, if you're again on the ULP display, the ultra low power display, you're able to move around the crown to see different metrics within that workout. And you are able to track your sleep overnight as well using the temperature sensor, blood oxygen, as well as your heart rate. So it's for the most part pretty accurate and similar to what my other watches give me. So for that, I think it's pretty good as well. And it's also able to track your naps. So if you take a nap during the day, it should be able to track that as well. I personally don't nap throughout the day. Even if I tried, I would not be able to, but it's something that it is able to do on this watch. Now, as far as the battery life, you do have a 628 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty large compared to the competition. And because you have the ultra low power display, you're able to get a pretty much 3 days of total usage on this watch. I think it's rated for 80 hours total, so that's about a little over 3 days. But for me personally, I'm getting just about exactly 3 days. That's with using the ultra lower power display. If I'm using the always on display, because you do have that option, I'm getting about 2 days of battery life, which is still pretty good again compared to the competition. So battery life I think is overall pretty good. If you want to make it survive the whole weekend, turn on the ultra low power display, or if you're going to be charging on an occasional basis, then just use the always on display. But either way, battery life I think is no issue on this watch. As far as charging, after 30 minutes I was at around like 60% battery life, so that's very good for a whole day of only 30 minutes of charging. But to fully charge the battery, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes or so, which I think is again pretty good compared to the competition. Now lastly, I do want to talk about the app that you use to connect the watch with it. It does have Google Fast Pair, so as soon as you unbox it and turn it on, my Pixel Watch was able to recognize it right away and connect it and set it up with my Google account. But with the Mobvoi Health App, that's where you pretty much can do most of the changing of settings and also access all of your exercise and health information from that app directly, and also customize the watch face if you want to as needed. The app itself, it looks okay in my opinion. I think it feels and looks a bit outdated to me, as in like it doesn't look as clean. But otherwise, it functions just fine. You get your health information and you can click into the different health metrics that you want to look at to see information throughout the day. Also see information over the past of your history, whether it be days, weeks, or months. And the customizable section is already pretty limited how you can customize the watch itself as far as the software, but you can change your tiles up there, your quick toggles, and change the watch face as well. The only thing I will note is that I have experienced sometimes moments where I would get a notification on the watch that the Mobvoi Health App and the watch itself aren't synced together and aren't connected together. So there have been a couple of days where I would check out the app itself and notice that there aren't any information, any metrics, anything measured for that particular day. So it hasn't happened recently, but that happened over a period of a couple of days. And I just basically had to log out and then log back into my account, and it fixed it. So that's just something that I experienced. And I also want to mention the software support, because I've read through some Reddit threads as well as just headlines that the TicWatch 3, I believe, was promised to get Wear OS 3.5, but it hasn't yet. And I think it's been over 2 years now. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know how trustworthy Mobvoi would be as far as those software updates and software support. As of now, when I first unboxed it, there was a software update, but I'm not sure how much they'll support it going forward. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So at the end of the day, would I recommend the Mobvoi TicWatch Pro 5? Personally, if you're an active user, a more serious athlete, I would look at other reviews first before you commit to this watch, just because I, one, didn't go in depth with that information and that measurements and stuff like that. But I've also questioned its credibility because, like I said earlier, that right now the step counter is still going up and I'm just still sitting here. So I definitely would question that if I were you. But if you're just an average user, then I personally think this nails pretty much all the basic fundamentals of a good smartwatch. From a good display, good overall feel and comfort, and a good looking watch as well. I would just change out that silicone band, but the performance is good, the battery life is amazing, and I just hope that Mobvoi is able to continue to update this watch as far as the software, because this is a solid watch hardware wise. So Mobvoi, please just keep updating this watch, stay committed to it, don't leave us hanging, because it's a good overall watch. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed, hope this was helpful, and peace.